What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Brandi, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. Hopefully, everyone's having a wonderful Wednesday.
I know it was Wednesday until you messaged me.
That's the only way I keep track. The only way you know. You gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, in the chat, first question, flatworm removal without killing your fish. What types of flatworms is the first question? Are these like the rusty planaria? Are they acroreading? Are they the type that go in LPS? Let us know. Slight heads up, we are semi-running on batteries right now for the live stream, so if we randomly disappear at some point, it means the battery backup has died. But we'll see what we get. I'm hoping we get like a solid stream out of it.
I told him I would tell everybody if his computer died, that his computer died.
Yep,
But
so there you go. We'll find out. Yeah, so hopefully it'll be good. So, Brandi, what's new and exciting? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I've got a lot of potential projects going on. I feel like I always have a lot of potential projects going on. Like, never done. I'm just always adding.
That's fair.
I think, was it last week? Was I on the stream last week?
Yeah, you were.
Oh my God.
It's like a roll. Don't have you for months and back to back, double the goodness.
I know. It's amazing. The baby's getting bigger, so it makes it easier to do these things.
Nice.
I don't remember if last week I was talking about not my new. I have an old water box tank, a 15-gallon water box tank that I'm going to either make into a freshwater tank or a hermit crab tank.
Very cool.
Thank you, chat.
Shelly, thank you for the super chat. Happy New Year. Remember to hit that like button. Always appreciated. Thank you, thank you. So
I didn't talk about it last week because I said at one point it was bright green because I was accidentally growing Fido in it.
Yes, that's right. So I've never had a hermit crab tank specifically, but it'd be kind of cool. You know what's funny? Before I was even into saltwater tanks, I would use saltwater tanks for freshwater because it was just an easy way to hide all your stuff in an all-in-one.
I mean, trying to think what it's an all-in-one tank, so just a pump and a heater in there, right? It's been so long since I've done a freshwater tank.
That's all you need. Pump in a heater.
Like you get to hide all the equipment. And I'm like, wait, do I need equipment?
I mean, if you have enough plants, you could probably get away without equipment if your room's warm enough.
Well, currently my heater's broken, so I probably can't trust on like my house heater. Just the downstairs one. The upstairs is keeping the rest of the house warm, but probably wouldn't want to trust that to keep the water warm. So probably would put a heater in it. But yeah, I want to do planted. I don't know exactly what plants yet. It's been so long since I've done one. But yeah.
I'll dig up some of my really old photos, the ones that I used to have later for you.
Hey,
in the archives.
18 freshwater tanks.
Dang, it's a good chunk.
Like, yeah, that was almost 20 years ago, and I'm probably not going to remember anything about what I used to do. But at one point, I had like my house was basically 70% water, just like my body.
I mean, it's good to keep everything in balance, right?
I was just trying to match my body percentage.
Okay, just get back to the one in the chat quickly. Stabila, red planaria, those are the rusty colored ones. They don't really harm the corals or anything per se. They're more just a pest. What you can do, you can use flatworm exit on them. But when they die, they release toxins into the water. So in the past, when I had them, I did use flatworm exit. But first, I took a little airline hose. I sucked out as many as possible. Did the treatment and sucked out as many as possible, and then run a bunch. You could do a big water change and run a bunch of carbon, but you just got to make sure you're dealing with the toxins after. That's the biggest thing. There is fish like 6 lines and some of the little guys that will eat them. I mean, that's another method of control. But if you want to do the chemical approach, they definitely release toxins, and you need to be on that to make sure your fish are okay.
Thank God I've never had flatworms.
Yeah.
I did once find a Euphilia eating flatworm, and it was huge, but there was only one, and never had any other issues.
Yeah, that's good. That's nice. They're a pain in the butt. Carl, looking to spend some Christmas money on the reef. Ozone or UV? First of all, what size tank do you have? Smaller tank, I'd probably do UV. A larger tank, I'd do ozone, personally. What do you think? What would you go for, Brandy?
Um, I was looking in the chat trying to figure out where you were.
David Garcia. Oh no, that wasn't David Garcia. David Garcia came back and rock flowers had babies. That is super cool. That is awesome. Carl Ray was the one asking, ozone or UV? 230-gallon tank. Okay, personally, ozone for sure.
Oh, I was going to say UV.
What is your reasoning? Opening it.
Because that's what I started with first.
Okay, fair.
No, because I think ozone can have some. Did he say what size tank he had?
230 gallons.
I think ozone, because there is some more risk to ozone than there is to UV.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like UV is a good place to start, and it also kind of depends what issues you're having. Like if you're just doing it because you want clear water, then I don't know that the UV is going to help that much with that. But if you're having some algae stuff and some plant or some fish issues, then the UV would work, and then later on you could add an ozone if you want.
My mind, ozone is kind of a replacement for carbon. Not 100%, but a good chunk of it. Mm-hmm. So it will break down. Yeah, no real issues looking for preventive measures. Okay. So my view on a large system, ozone acts like a carbon, where carbon will absorb toxins. Ozone will help break them down. Then you can skim them out. It gives you better water clarity, which is a big one. That's honestly the biggest one. And like carbon removes like funky smells from your tank. So does ozone, because it breaks down those organics to make the smells. UV, you need to buy bulbs every year and replace them. So there's an ongoing cost. Where ozone is you kind of buy it and you're pretty much set. So, and it takes less electricity. You use a couple watts of power versus, 50, 60 watts 24/7. So I think ozone's a good investment in general if you're just doing it for like overall prevention on a larger system.
If there's no real issues, I guess my gut reaction is UV, just because I feel like people just recently started using ozone and talking about it a whole lot. I'm sure people have been using ozone for years, but I feel like
it's old school. It's just making a comeback.
Yeah, it's making a comeback. So like in my head, I'm like, yeah, you would do a UV first, then an ozone. But
I have both, but I mainly just use the ozone. I will use UV periodically, or if I had like dinos or something, I'd use the UV. But for just general, ozone's like my staple. Usually, the UV will also increase your tank temperature, so that's another consideration. If you're in a colder climate and you're running your heaters, UV can offset what your heaters need. If you're somewhere hot, you don't want the extra heat. But there's it's these little considerations, right?
Yeah.
Stuff you don't think about most of the time.
I wonder if I need to be running my UV since I have my ozone. I don't ever turn my UV off. It didn't even occur to me. Maybe I could turn it off.
Yeah.
I might experiment with that.
Yeah. I turned mine off a while back because just the tank temperature is too high, and then I just haven't bothered turning it back on in ages.
This was a good question. It has me thinking about different things I could do.
Right? Exactly. So like, for instance, like if my tank is too hot, my UV turns off. Like there's all these different stages of stuff that happen based on tank parameters. But yeah.
I don't think my tank's ever been too hot.
Mine has. In the summertime, it gets toasty.
We're in North Carolina though, where it gets to 90 something degrees, and it's a nice 68 degrees inside because we have really good air conditioners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. It's funny, like in my house, like the bottom floor will be way cooler than the top floor. The top floor will get roasting in the summer with just like the windows and stuff. And oof.
Chris Turner said before that, this is why I was confused. So I was like, I feel like you missed something. If I can afford a larger tank, do I jump into that, or are there some benefits starting nano other than cost?
This is a big one. We
talked about this a little bit last week too, didn't we?
This is a big one. Okay. So actually, you go first, Brandi.
I think that there's a size tank that gives you a lot of options. Like if you're at 120, if you can afford a 120 to start with, gives you a whole lot of options. However, there's a lot of people who start the hobby and get out of it in a year or two. So I think there's also a benefit as far as making sure that this is something you want to stick with and continue to do and figure out all the kinks and products you want to use with a smaller tank. Maybe not necessarily nano, but like a 40-gallon breeder that gives you some ability to test things out as you're planning for that larger tank and making sure you're going to stay in it in the hobby.
True, true. It's a trade-off. I started in nanos and worked my way bigger and bigger and bigger because I was sucked into the coral addiction.
What size is considered nano?
My first tank was 12 gallons.
So where's the limit of nano? Because my
I don't
first
know.
tank was 29.
Under 20. Under 20.
So I was just not a nano for my first tank.
I mean, it's subject to opinion, right? You could say under 30, but whatever.
Okay.
Big nano, small nano.
It's our opinion. We get to choose.
Yeah, pick what you want.
Right.
So personally, I started tiny, and then I became addicted to coral, and I went bigger, 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 bigger. And now I'm like, oh, I kind of miss some of the little stuff. Let me get a nano again. And now I have a nano on my desk with like tons of cool creatures in it, which is its own fun thing. So they're different beasts. Exactly. So like big tank, a lot more money for your dosing, all your stuff you add into it, right? All your gear, you need more lights, yada yada yada. Nano's simple and it's cheap.
You need more heater. You need
More electricity. Yeah. So if you're somewhere where electricity is expensive, nano's cheap, big tank's not cheap. There's also the maintenance side of it. Like in a nano, you could do a 1 bucket water change and you're probably going to have zero issues with your tank. It's resets enough and, things will ride on happy. In a big tank, you gotta do a big water change. So it's always a bit of a trade-off. Like in a sense, I find nanos easy just because it's so easy to just give it a water change and reset things a bit if you need to. But then you run out of coral space. So.
But if you're one of those people who are out of the hobby in a year or two, coral space isn't a problem to begin with. And I think that's like just being realistic. Like I wish people didn't leave the hobby, but it always makes me sad when I see people who are like, I have a tank that's 1 year old. I'm not going to do this anymore. And they're trying to get rid of it. And they don't really hold their value well.
Yeah, that's fair.
So just being practical.
Yeah. But that's it's true though, right? If you got a tank that's too big for you to maintain with the amount of time you have in your lifestyle, then there's a higher risk of it going downhill eventually and then you getting out of it. Or if you have one that's really easy to maintain, you're more likely to stick with it long term and get more enjoyment out of it. So it's always like this balance. So it kind of depends on your hardcore level and life and all that type of stuff. Lots of considerations.
If you have ADHD and you tend to change hobbies frequently, a smaller tank.
Or what if you just collect hobbies and you just keep gaining more and more and more?
Oh, well, if you keep them too big. It depends is the question or is the answer.
Like everything in life. Okay, certain Reef was asking about the Versas and how mine have been. So he's been running his 5 months auto water change. I think you said you're running it 24/7. So waiting on replacement tubes. Yeah. So all of my dosing ones, my calc ones, those ones have been all stars. I don't think I've ever changed the tubes on them. The one for my calcium reactor, that one I changed every 3 or 4 months because that's 45 mils a minute, 24/7. It gets a lot of abuse. And my saltwater one, I feel like that one might need a little more changing. So it kind of depends on how much abuse it takes. But yeah, for regular dosing, they last ages. For calcium reactors or, the low CO2 or saltwater, those ones will wear out a bit quicker.
Is it bad that I've never changed the lines on my GHL?
Depends what you're doing with it. So.
Some of it is running pretty heavy.
But it also depends what's going through it. Like my calc one, never had an issue. It's been fine. The one for my calcium reactor that runs, the different pHs and the CO2 and the salt water through it, those tubings get worn out a lot quicker. And that's the same with the Versas and the same with the Comor pumps that I used to use. So they just take a lot more abuse of what's running through it and what's affecting, the materials in it. They make it more brittle over time. So it depends.
My GHL needs to be replaced. You have a GHL pump too, or doser, right?
No.
You don't have the doser?
I have a controller, but not a doser.
Huh?
I have the controller, but not a doser.
So mine's probably 3 years old. Mm-hmm. And over time, like the blue outside starts to crack.
It's
And you
time.
start finding little pieces of blue plastic.
Yep.
And that should be an indication that it's time to change some things. And so far I've been ignoring it. But mine definitely needs some changing.
Yep, I would say that one's time. Anyone heard of the Refi Uno light? Heard of it, never used it. Have you ever used it?
And Reef said way up ahead, anyone have experience dosing all for Reef and calc at night for pH boost and stability? Anything I should know or be aware of?
I ordered all for Reef. It's in the mail. I'll have some next week. So not yet, but it will in the
Have
near
you
future.
ever used it? You've never
No.
used it?
No.
Oh.
It's a cool
I've
solution.
used it.
Do tell.
I like it.
Good.
Tell
me
I feel
more.
like there's not really much to say. It works the way it says it's going to work.
It's
Do I
simple.
keep
It's
moving or
easy.
something?
No, I moved. I just tried to like center you a bit more.
Yeah, it's very easy to measure out. It's very straightforward. I would not use it on a big tank, but on small tanks, it's amazing
Why wouldn't you use on a big tank?
because it's expensive.
Is this the liquid or the DIY powder?
I was using the liquid,
Okay, that's right.
and I feel like the entire container I would have gone through in like a few days in my big tank.
Okay.
So I had a 15-gallon tank versus 100 and almost 200-gallon tank. So
It's cool because it has trace elements and stuff mixed in as well, which is pretty cool for a one-part solution that's literally everything. So my plan is to try it and use it on my Gani Nano. It's like
nice.
just one. I'm trying to keep this tank as simple as possible. So far, so good. So
it's so easy to dose too. Are you getting the bottle or are you getting the powder mix?
I bought the powder.
Oh, it
Well,
might
'cause
be
it's way
worth
cheaper.
getting a bottle at some point so you can fill it up.
No, a doser. So I have a single
you're-
Versa, and I 3D printed, I think I showed last week, a little thing to hang on the side of the tank. So just one doser, one thing to dose, super easy. Hopefully, that's my plan. But
Sounds super.
I don't know. Like I've been curious. Like, is it worth trying it on the bigger tank too? Like I on top of calcium reactor, calc everything else. But I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like I was dosing like 20 milliliters a week
Mm-hmm.
in my 15-gallon tank. Of course, this is the liquid.
Yeah.
So times 10 would have been 200 milliliters. That's almost the whole bottle at that point, right? So
Yeah, but
what's
if you,
the bottle, like $18? I don't know how much the bottle is. It might be $100 for all I know.
but if you get the powder, it makes 16 liters for like $60 or something. So, but Alpha Reef's also more concentrated than regular dosing, so you dose less of it. So I don't even know how much I'm gonna dose on the Nano. I'm gonna start with like a mill a day or something and see what happens. But
Yeah, I'm thinking about my Kalkwasser. I think I dosed like 2 liters a day on this, maybe more.
yeah,
So I would have been doing like 2 liters a week instead of 2 liters a day.
maybe.
Yeah, potentially. I'm just trying to do the like quick math.
But are you taking
I think
account of
it's
the different
unreasonable.
potency levels?
Yeah, it's not as cheap as Kalkwasser still, but it's probably not unreasonable.
So there's a question in the chat: can you use both?
Oh,
And
sorry.
absolutely. There's no reason you couldn't use calc with Alpha Reef, right? They're just like I'm on my big tank. I'm dosing hydroxide base elks. I'm doing like 4 to 6 liters of calc as well as 45 mils a minute through my calcium reactor. So there's like all the methods mixed, right? Like you can absolutely mix different methods, like completely fine to do.
So I use a 3-part, and then I make up the difference of my alk with Kalkwasser. Because my 3-part has like the traces and stuff in it.
Yeah.
And then that way my 3-part's never going to keep up with that alkalinity consumption. It's just too much. But
That's right.
though my DKH was like 14 today out of nowhere.
That's up there.
Yeah. I didn't notice that my reagent was out of my KH director.
Oh, no.
And I guess it thought it was the alkalinity was low.
Oh.
It was actually 14.
You just made me look. 8.9 and 10.98.
Perfect.
Ooh, that one tank's high.
Not as high as 14.
You know,
14's okay. It's
I
not
bet
like
I've been there.
it'll still.
Phil, what do you have your pH set on your calcium reactor? 45 mil seems very high with all the other dosing. It is, I believe it's about 6.5, but I'll tell you exactly. Let me find my CO2 solenoid. It is 6.45 to 6.55 is my range.
How big is your tank, Devin?
200 gallons ish.
So certain reefs said, I would be shocked if any tank under 300 gallons would need a reactor. I don't think I need a reactor, but you have a ton of coral.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, even just the one, I saw that one Instagram I did a while ago, but it's just like the red dragon. It's like this. I have another millie that's like massive. Like, I have some big corals. Like, I dose a lot to my tank. Like, I've thought about just dosing, but it would not be cheap because think of how much the calcium reactor is doing. And on top of the calcium, so I do the calcium reactor, I do calc, as well as I dose about 85 to 100 mils a day on top of that. So it's like a lot going into that tank. Like, just dosing would be sweet, but because I wouldn't have to deal with all the pH dropping. But again, that'd be very expensive. So that's the thing. I have like a love-hate thing with calcium reactors. I love them because they're so simple. And another actually tangent in my head. So with a calcium reactor, so certain medias do leach out phosphates, which again, depending on your tank level, I see some people that are dosing phosphates to their tank because they're low on it. And part of my mind is like, oh, you could just use, like Reborn or something with a bit higher phosphates and supplement it that way. It'd be a good way. Anyways, side rant.
I know nothing about calcium reactors. I kept thinking I was going to need one, and so far I haven't. So I'm in this like space. If I haven't had to use it, I haven't figured it out.
That's fair. With calcium reactors, I just kind of think of it as when you feel dosing is getting expensive, then a calcium reactor might make sense.
One day, I'd love for dosing to be getting expensive because that means I have giant corals.
Yep. Okay, so Phil, I was using 200 mils a day of components 1, 2, 3 and switched to a calcium reactor. How many mils a minute are you running through your reactor, Phil? Like, I don't know. So that's the thing. This is why I do multiple methods. Like, part of me is like, okay, it has redundancy because if one ever fails, then the other ones aren't completely going to tank your elk, right? Like, you might drop half a point to not 2 points in a day type of thing. So it's all a trade-off.
And a space said, off reef is good until it's bad. If you have a large DKH consumption tank, better watch your trace. That's a good point.
Well, Alpha Reef has trace built in, so technically wouldn't you be good with it? At least for the most part. Like, it's obviously not everything's going to be perfectly balanced.
I guess it depends if things are being consumed at the same rate as, like if traces are being consumed at the same rate as alk.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you have a potential for becoming out of balance with Alpha Reef because you have less control. You have no control of what the ratios are.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just doing water changes and no dosing, you're in the same boat.
Yep. What? Okay. Phil said he was dosing 200 mils a day. Now he's only running 15 mils per minute through the reactor. That seems so low to me. Like, what medium, what pH? That's crazy. Crazy talk. 15 mils a minute. I think I'm at 45 mils a minute. I'm pretty sure. I do calc as well, but I only do it at nighttime. So
Phil has big colonies too.
I know. Exactly. Reborn 6.8. Yeah, so I'm running my Reborn pH lower than you're running yours. And I also have Reborn. Interesting. To me, that seems crazy how that keeps up with your demand.
Isn't his tank bigger than yours also?
It's up there. Probably.
I feel like it's huge. How big is your tank, Phil?
Yep. Details, buddy. Details. Phil, you got to come on again. You was great last time. I know. Oh, have you ever tried? Speaking of I'm on the Tropic Marin train this week. I ordered some A and K trace elements as well. I'm gonna try out my big tank. It's 525 XL. Maddie's Reef is almost 400 gallons. Solid.
It's a big tank.
Yep. Have you ever used the A and K trace elements on their own?
I don't think I have. I think I was using. Who's the other company?
There's many. Red Sea, Fauna, Tropic Marin,
White and Blue.
Aquaforest, Fauna Marin.
I think it was Tropic. No.
Tropic Marin and Fauna Marin. I think they're both white and blue, and they both have similar names. Take your pick.
They have the method with the
blue bottles.
refugium and without the refugium?
Triton.
Triton. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We got there eventually.
Yeah.
I dosed Triton for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very expensive, and I didn't feel like I was seeing that much of a difference between it and some of the cheaper brands. And so I switched to a cheaper brand just to see, and I never went back. I probably should test them out again now that I have bigger coral colonies that I might see a difference with. But that was back whenever I had my BioCube and then a 60-gallon. So there was only so much that's going to happen with that.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't know. Part of me is kind of wanting to try like a different system or method on each tank, just to like, I don't know. I don't know why. It probably makes no difference, but just for fun. So I was
like confusing for you.
I know. So I was doing like a whole slew of random Brightwell traces on my tank. Most of them have run out, so I decided to try some new ones. So I ordered the A and K because it's only 2 bottles instead of many. So I'm gonna try that as the base, and then I'll probably still use the random shine stuff to like tweak on top of that. But I'm gonna try that. So that's my next like wave of trace element diving into.
Do they actually? Is there any company that tells you the actual concentrations of all the elements?
I don't know. That's all questionable. Some kind of do, some don't. It's harder with the blended stuff, right? Because they probably some of them do, but you know it's this percentage of this. But to like work it out based off your dosing, I don't know. I'm just gonna like pick an arbitrary value of like 5 mils a day, and then wait a while and ICP test it, and then to see if my levels are low, up, off, out to lunch, and then kind of go from there.
If you have a drop in any part, is it just like the balling method? You just add different parts.
Basically, yeah.
That trait.
Yep. Tracy. I love Tropic Marin. Pretty much all I've used in my tank since I started this one. See, I haven't really used much of their products before. So that's why I'm kind of half curious. Like, I think it's super high purity and good stuff. And then, yeah, I don't know.
That's Lou Eckes too, right?
Yeah, Lou. And
he's
Lou
really
is good. I was literally going to order some Alpha Reef, and I messaged him. He's like, and he's like, oh, give me a call. So I chatted with him for like 20 minutes. And then, yeah, super nice. Such a good guy. So I'm actually bringing him back on the stream again in a few weeks because he's good. But so I'm just like, I'm going to try some more. Huh?
He talked to my club a couple of weeks ago, and he gave us a whole bunch of stuff to give away, like a ridiculous amount of stuff to give away. Nice. And I'm like, you could have just done a gift card.
That's cool, though. That's awesome.
Yeah, we have a bunch of stuff, so.
Maybe I'll try working some giveaways. Yeah, he's coming on, I think, the 24th, I believe, I booked him for.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah, he's good. He's really good at explaining stuff in simplistic forms, like taking something complicated and making it easy to understand, which I appreciate.
And he also has no problem saying, I don't know, which I always respect when someone says, I don't know the answer to that.
Yep, I agree. He said he could get them by the 5-gallon buckets. There you go. 5-gallon all for Reef for the big tank. If the price was reasonable, I would totally try that.
Yeah, I think that would alleviate my concern of it being expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even the powder, it is so much cheaper than the liquid. Like for a nano, like liquid makes sense, but even on my nano, I'm like, nah, I'll buy the powder mix myself. It'll last me like years for my one container, which will be great.
NSB Reef said coralline algae is mainly what I was talking about. Does coralline algae take up the same traces that coral does?
It definitely takes up elk and calcium for sure.
But what about traces?
It's calcareous, like it's building its little thing, right? I don't know. I'm assuming it takes up some. I have no idea how much or of what, but I would assume some.
In my head, I feel like it's not as complex of an organism as coral, so therefore it probably isn't using as much of the traces, and maybe that might cause some imbalances in traces if you have a ton of coralline growth.
Yeah, if your tank's all purple, like guaranteed it's sucking up all the elements.
Build a man cave.
I would love to one day.
You have a man cave, only it's...
No, I have a tiny office. I need a man cave. A giant office.
Caves are huge. Most caves are tiny, aren't they?
I want a big cave one day. / recording area. One day. It's on my future wish list.
My cave is not going to be tiny.
You I have this like vision that one day it will happen of like a nice big office area with like dedicated filming areas and stuff where I could just like have it set up and like walk up and hit a button and record stuff versus like setting up and moving stuff all the time. One day, one day.
I mean, like Tidal Gardens, 9,000 square foot building.
Yeah, but smaller.
I think he's running out of room too, and he's got 9,000 square feet. I'm like, I feel like there's
Oh,
not enough room.
never, never. I don't know. One day, one day. Can you use baking soda? Yes, you can. In a pitch, baking soda absolutely can work. Mix it up, and you can even bake it in the oven and change it to the other type of elk. But you got options.
Hey, what? Isn't that the one you cook?
Yes, there is sodium carbonate and bicarbonate. I never remember which. I don't know why, but I never remember which is which. One of them has a higher hit on pH. The other one has a lower hit on pH, but basically the same thing. Otherwise, um, but yeah, one's basically baked and one's unbaked. You can absolutely use the stuff from the grocery store. You can buy reefing stuff. It's all a mix. Bicarb has the higher hit. Thank you. I don't know why this never sinks into my head, but it's the one thing that I always second guess. It's probably because I use calcium reactors and everything else for so long that it's not a common thing that I use. I just use it for corrections for the most part. But Arm & Hammer washing soda is the baked version. There you go. Yeah, if you're going to use anything from the grocery store, just make sure it's pure and doesn't have like scents or additives to it. That's the big thing.
What's adverts? Anyone got adverts?
Advertising. So YouTube started doing random ads, and I put it on like the most conservative setting possible, but apparently it's still a bit much. Oh, YouTube.
Ads.
I know. Dang them.
It's funny. A lot of this stuff, like the bicarb versus the sodium, I've never even thought about. Like, if I've never used it, I have not thought about it. I ignore all questions about it and all comments about it and never come back to it.
Yep. What is gamer tag? Not the flex. YouTube Premium for the win. Yeah, I don't know. I'm too cheap. Maybe one day I'll get YouTube Premium.
My son wants it. He asks me for it like almost every day.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why.
You can use ad blockers and stuff, and then it reduces them. It doesn't like completely eliminate it, but definitely tones it down. It's probably why I don't notice as much.
Fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, you didn't grow up with commercials. You can handle an ad every once in a while.
I mean, fair enough. Watch more YouTube than Amazon or Netflix. Probably my number one subscription. That's fair enough. If it is your main source, then it kind of makes sense.
It's my son's main source, but he can see what it's like to have commercials.
Yeah.
I think it's building character.
Back before having a toddler, I used to watch more shows. Now all I do is watch cartoons when I get to watch shows. So it's very few and far between these days. Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yep.
Late night reef tweaking, mixing chemicals in the middle of the night because it's your only free time.
Oh my goodness. So tired from all the late night. I think I was up to like 2:30 last night doing like social media stuff because that was the only time I had to do it.
Yep. I feel you.
Exhausting.
Barry, have you ever dosed calcium carbonate like coral snow? I have tried coral snow. It does work well as a flocculant, so it will bind all the particles in your water, which gets filtered out and then gives you super clear water afterwards, which does work well. I have not confirmed this, but I remember Mike Paletta told me one time on the stream that he used it to help get rid of vermitid snails. I don't know if this is true. I've been trying to find someone else who's done it yet, so if anyone's done this, let me know.
I have a ton of vermitid snails. I'm willing to test this out.
Let me know if this works. Like, he's the only one that said it. I've never heard anyone else like confirm this. I'm trying to find like someone else be like, yes, that's
coral
works.
snow? I've never used it before.
Yeah, it's basically like chalk or like calcium carbonate powder.
Okay.
Like KZ makes one called Coral Snow, or you can make your DIY version. But yeah, basically calcium carbonate powder. You dump it in, your tank looks super cloudy and milky, and then the next day your water is super duper clear.
I am looking for it now. Let's see. Does Bulk Reef Supply sell it?
They do.
Oh, I'm like, why is my...
We are reefers, Brandi. It's what we do. I know, right?
Bulk Reef Supply. I am going to order it right now, and I will be able to report back if it kills vermitids.
Yeah, let me know. I'm curious. Like, you have some. Maybe just try using it every few days for like a few weeks and see.
How did he say to use it? Like just as recommended, or?
I don't know. I have a stream I did with him a long time ago when we chatted about it.
All right, who do we want to buy it from? KZ, Tropic Marin.
Pick your favorite brand. Whatever one's on sale is usually my strategy. Or just make your own. You got options.
I feel like the powder from Coral Snow or from Tropic Marin is going to last longer. What are y'all's opinions? Tell me which one to get. They're the same price, essentially. Just one's a liquid and one's a powder.
Liquid, dump it in. I mean, powder will be cheaper because you mixed your own, right? It's always cheaper than liquid.
I would think. All right. Add to cart.
There you go.
It will be here before long.
Perfect. We expect an update in a month. Hopefully it's good. If you do DIY, it's 1 tablespoon per 50 gallons. That's it. Yeah, I don't know. Tracy says he go Tropic bread.
Videos of people doing it, their whole tank turns white.
Yeah,
Am
it
I
does.
thinking the right thing? Okay.
Yeah, just do it at nighttime before you go to bed. And then next day your tank looks good.
The
Water's
next
super
time
clear.
they're going to be dead.
Hopefully, this is what I want to know. You are the missing link here to answer this question, Brandi. So
I love Sing Link.
AJT, I'm looking for a phosphate reducer and can't decide between ROFOS and GFO. Do you have any preference and why? I find ROFOS works very well. I've used both. In theory, ROFOS is you don't need to rinse it. I still kind of do because it gives you a bit of oranginess otherwise. But I feel like it works a bit better than regular GFO. Again, with any of the phosphate reducers, don't overdo it.
I feel like what about Phosphate X? Is that it? Phosex? What have I used recently?
Lewis, haven't seen you in a while, buddy. I switched to...
Lies.
Huh?
He was here last week.
Well, I know,
I
but...
was talking to him about beans last week.
Sorry, I haven't seen him in a long time.
Phosphate E
Yes.
is what I normally use because my phosphate hardly ever gets high, and I use just a little bit of that, and then it's down low again for ages.
That's the liquid drops. Okay, phosphate E is lanthanum chloride.
Lanthanum chloride.
It's
very
Huh?
It can take it down real fast.
Yes, it can. But you got to be careful because some RASs and some tangs are more sensitive to it, and it can cause issues for them. So what it does is binds the phosphates into little tiny particles, and they can get stuck in some fish's gills. So
I had a RAS randomly die 8 months ago. I wonder if that was what it was. I couldn't find anything wrong with them.
Did you dose lanthanum?
Probably.
That's probably why. Because it's super tiny things and can get caught in the fish's gills. So when I've used it in the past...
How come people don't talk about this more?
This is what we're doing. We're talking about it. I'm educating. Okay, so...
Thanks for educating me. I feel so bad.
Yeah, so lanthanum chloride binds phosphates. So you can dilute it, blah, blah, blah. But what I've done, either 2 different methods. Perfect world, you would dose it into about a 5 micron filter sock or lower, and it would bind up in there. The only annoying thing is the filter sock gets plugged up fairly quick. Other thing I've seen people do I thought was kind of a clever idea is dose it into the skimmer itself.
That's what I do.
Yeah, so you dose it through there, so basically it does all the binding within the skimmer body and gets skimmed out. But just don't willy-nilly dose it to the tank is the main thing. Sorry, say again?
Do you think that's still problematic for RASs if you do it?
I think you're relatively safe dosing it directly to the skimmer. I think if you're just dosing it to your sump or the main water column without going through mechanical filtration, there's more of an issue there.
Thank you, Sparkly.
Sparkly, $24.99 super chat. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
I love the name, too.
I know, right? It's wonderful. Much appreciated.
So that might explain my RAS death, or it might not.
It might. But yeah, you got to be more careful with lanthanum chloride because it is more of a risk, right? Because of that. So dosing it into some form of mechanical filtration goes a long way. What else
I knew about I knew it was an issue to overdose, but I didn't realize that was the issue.
Well, the other issue too, if you lower your phosphate too quick, again, that can cause issues. Or if you strip your phosphate, you're starving your corals for nutrients because they also need the phosphates.
I normally have to do like a third of what it says to do.
That's wise, right? It's always safer to go slower. Yeah, one-armed reefer. I dose lanthanum before my roller mat. All that stuff definitely adds up and goes a long way.
We learn stuff every day.
I know, right?
Getting rid of green hair algae tips.
Corals can live without nitrate, but not phosphate. Yeah, I think you're probably correct on that one. Phosphate definitely is important for corals.
They like ammonia too.
Yep. Okay, what was the green algae question?
It says, Mayor B, getting rid of green hair algae tips, question mark.
Oh, tips to get rid of it. Okay, green hair algae. First thing is just manual removal as much as you can. That is going to reduce what you have to do. If you have a glass tank, pincushion urchin does wonders. They work very well on it. They will devour green hair algae. Like, honestly, they're probably one of the best creatures to clean it up for you.
Like
there's turbos.
What are these hairs? Sea hairs.
Sea hairs?
Sea hair.
Yeah.
Because the sea hair eats it really, really fast, but then they die.
Yeah.
And it grows back. The
like there is
best.
I think they're the best. Like there is turbo snails, there is fish that will pick at it, but pincushion urchins, they stay tiny. They're ferocious algae eaters. They're one of the best. If you don't have any of those or you don't want to put one in, you can always manually remove it and then turn off your flow and hit it with a bit of hydrogen peroxide. I've used 3%, kind of like 1 mil per 10 gallons is the general safe rule in my head. And then just spot treat it and it will kind of help kill it off. And that also works fairly well on it. If you want the hammer approach, if you do a double or triple dose of fluconazole, that will also basically melt it away. But
I don't like using fluconazole.
Yeah, so that's like the hammer approach if the other methods aren't working. What is gamer tag?
My experience, it comes back.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Woody's gamer tag.
Thanks, buddy. Thanos snaps, your tank is empty. What changes do you make to the aquascape this time around? If my tank was empty, oh my goodness. I've made small changes. A big thing now, I've also learned over time to keep the scape lower so that you have more room for coral growth overall. I thought I left a fairly good gap towards the glass, but now I wish I had a larger gap because, again, corals grow towards the glass. And yet, every time I was cleaning my tank, I'm basically fragging corals or breaking off branches. So either a wider tank or leave more of a gap. Those are the two big kind of considerations for, more changes to mine or future ones.
I've actually changed my aquascape 3 times since I set this tank up less than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I would do, so right now I think I have more of an NSA type scape. Mm-hmm. I think I would do more of just more rocks in general so that there's more a gradual decline and also more places for fish to hide. I think they have lots of places to hide, but no real caves.
Mm-hmm.
And I've considered actually taking out a bunch of it and redoing the aquascape again and basically doing a rock wall.
Yeah. That's fair. The wall can look good. Peninsulas are trickier, right? Because it has to look good from both sides.
Yeah, that's been my struggle because I feel like I have this very narrow band to put rocks because otherwise it's too close to either side of the glass. I think if I was just do boulders coming down and just a bunch of boulders instead of the NSA because you don't really get the ability to scooch around the way I thought I wanted it to do.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's fair. In a peninsula, ours I think are 24 inches. It'd be cool to have a 30-inch one to have that extra few inches on either side.
My aquascape would look so much better if the tank was a little bit wider.
Yeah. I agree. I think that'd be a thing too if I did a tank again, having that more width. It just gives it a whole nother dimension that you don't really think of a lot of the time.
Dude, you've been running your CO2 scrubber for a while now. Which medias have you used and which is your favorite?
I have primarily been using a medical brand called Carbolime or Carb O2 Lime, mainly because I can buy a 5-gallon bucket for a reasonable price. So that's my justification. There's other better brands out there, but for the price, it's hard to beat. And again, 5 gallon bucket, you last a good year plus or longer out of it. And it's easier to find in Canada than some of these other brands. So that's what I've been using. And yeah, it's worked pretty well. If you are going to use a CO2 scrubber or the soda lime, recirculating it definitely makes it last longer. It does last longer with the moisture in the air. So I have used it inline from outside air, and I've used it to start recirculating. You do get a bit of a better boost out of recirculating, and it does last a bit longer. So that's kind of the trade-off, but that's kind of the most efficient way to use it that I found. Jorvit is what I use, $100. Yeah, I think the stuff I paid is around 150 Canadian chips, something like that, for a 5 gallon pail, which lasts over a year.
I have a tuxedo urchin and turbo snails. I'm making progress on it, but still a lot left. Look, this tank was like overrun with hair algae when I was pregnant. Like it was a problem, and just physically getting in and scrubbing it, like I don't think I would have ever gotten on top of it if I hadn't have helped the herbivores out a little bit. Like you just got to get in there and scrub it sometimes.
100% worth it. Matt's Reef, thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated, buddy.
We got another super chat.
The love is in the air. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. That's very sweet of you.
Yeah, definitely appreciated. Okay, as for as manually removing it, 100% agree. The less work you're making for your tank or your peroxide or whatever you're dosing, the easier it is going to be, right? Or even if you're taking the hammer approach, it's still going to release some stuff back into the water. So the more manually you remove, the less of a battle you're going to have in the tank. So, and it's pretty easy to just yank it off too, to be honest.
A trick I learned from Reef Beef was taking a filter, I forget what brand it was, but it's the pleated filter that you can just put directly in the water and have it going as you're pulling off the algae, because inadvertently you're always going to have some floating around, and then that way it sucks up a lot of it too, and further helps you with cleaning the hair algae up.
No, that's a good point. The other thing too, if you're doing a water change, if you have like a thicker hose, you can just kind of grab it and yank it and let the water change hose suck it down the drain or into your bucket and move it out that way. It's another one that works fairly well. But the big thing with that is afterwards is either have a creature that will eat the base of the algae that's attached to the rocks, or turn off your flow and then hit it with some hydrogen peroxide, because that will help kill it off, just so it doesn't regrow back, right? Otherwise, you still might have to that issue.
How much hydrogen peroxide you would use to do that?
1 mil per 10 gallons is what I have in my head as the safe amount to use.
And so you put it directly on it, or just in the water?
Nope. Okay. Directly spot treat. Just fill up like a 5 or 10 mil syringe and just very slowly release it right over the spot, and you'll see it kind of come out and almost cover that little chunk of the rock and do its thing. Then leave this flow off for 15-20 minutes and turn it back on, then you should be good. But if you just do that daily for a couple days, then you'll completely kill it off.
Yeah, so that's going to be something that like you probably aren't going to be able to do all in one sitting if you have a really, really bad outbreak of it.
Yeah, exactly. If you have a very terrible outbreak, you could take the rock out and dose hydrogen peroxide and completely kill it and then put it back in, but you're also going to kill the good bacteria. So you'd have to every week pick a different rock and treat it. I mean, that is another, hammer approach. But
Woody's gamer tag has a 35-inch wide tank.
Nice. I'm jealous of that.
I'm imagining a beautiful, beautiful tank.
Yep. Oh, I would love that one day.
You get one. Can you get one for me too?
Yeah, let's see what we can do. You just need the right spot for it.
I have plenty of spots that are the right spot.
All right, we'll see what we can find, Brandi. Marine Land polishing filter. Has anyone ever used Live Aquaria Premium Reef Rock? I have not.
Neither.
Yep. Stock pictures look good, but I haven't found any real pictures. Yeah, I mean, it is nice to see real ones, right? Because most people are going to pick the primo of the pile for the photos.
Oh, German Works Banks. He said that it's a marine land polishing filter.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the brand that I'm blanking on everything tonight. I'm tired.
Happens.
Here's something I'm curious if you know about this also. Wild hair thought. Have you ever looked at the concept of degassing columns from Port Wolf?
I'm assuming you mean for the calcium reactor. I have played with it. It did give a little bit of a boost to the pH coming out of it. I did get weird kind of bacteria built up over time within my little degassing cup, but I like my super.
Can you also tell us what that is? Because I don't know what that is, which is why that got my attention.
Oh, degassing?
I mean, I know what degassing is, but I don't know what degassing columns are.
Oh, basically, if you take your calcium reactor, put it into a second chamber, and then have like an air bubble or something inside of it, you're injecting that oxygen. You're basically trying to drive out some of the CO2 from there. So basically boosting the pH of your calcium reactor effluent, and then you let that drip into the tank. It does have, it's not a massive effect. Like when I experimented with it, maybe I need a bigger chamber, but it had like a bit of an effect. It did boost it a bit, but it wasn't like a night and day difference.
So is that again the two chamber? Is that what a two chamber calcium reactor does?
Kind of.
Kind of, but no.
Oh, okay. So that could be a degassing chamber-ish. So the second chamber is just another spot for it to react with more media and absorb more of that CO2. So I did that. And I've also tried dripping into another cup, which had a limewood air bubbler in there, limewood air stone, with a bubbler, trying to see if I could off-gas it even more. There was times when I've done like all these intermittent levels, and each one had like, a small improvement. None of them were like night and day, but I mean, they all add up. What's that?
Have you ever done them all at the same time?
Yeah.
Oh.
It all helps. It definitely all helps. I mean, honestly now, this is like... I'm always hesitant to share this stuff, but dosing the hydroxides on top of it has been the biggest impact because the hydroxides essentially help remove the CO2. They bind it and help remove the CO2 from the water, which boosts your pH. That's been the biggest difference. But again, it's also nasty stuff. So I'm always hesitant to tell people too much about it because it's like Walter White style mixing with like gloves and glasses because it's extremely caustic, right? It's not something to not be cautious about.
Can hurt your skin a little bit.
Yep.
And some eyeballs.
Yeah.
And some lungs.
Yeah. So best to be extra safe if playing with any of the caustic high pH dosing methods. Port Wolf. I meant degassing column in aquaculture, like counterflow degassing columns. I have not.
I don't know what that means.
I'm half assuming they do a bunch of air bubbling and like waste management and certain things to help promote the bacteria to break down stuff. I'm assuming it's something along that train of thought, but I'm not 100%.
I know that Polar Reef had to do a lot of degassing too, right? Mm-hmm. But I didn't really follow why or what caused it or what the solution was. Is that the same is that the same type of thing or is that something different?
I think it's similar because I know for like in wastewater they do it. I know they do it in like some aquaponics and certain things, but basically it helps. The oxygen helps boost the bacteria, which help break down a lot of the waste and the nasties. Essentially, that's kind of like the simplistic version of it. So I've not tried it in a reef tank. I mean, you could turn your sump into a jacuzzi, and there might be some extra benefits to it, but
I want a jacuzzi, but not myself.
Yep.
AJT, not another question, just a huge fan. Please come to the Reefapalooza, California this year, please. If you go, I'll go.
We'll see. When is it?
I have no idea. My phone's dead, so I can't even look and see.
I'm Googling. When is it? September 7th to 8th.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. Possibly. Potential. September.
I think I raised my out too fast, and all my red mounties turned brown. Will they come back?
Likely. How fast did you raise it, though? Dun, dun, dun.
It might take...
Usually corals are surprisingly hardy. Like, they can definitely bounce back if things are stable and happy for a while. But if your parameters are out of whack, then, it might stress them over the edge. Polo's reef tank neat because their water is falling 20 feet at 200,000 gallons per hour.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good chunk.
Lots of air is getting in that, huh?
Well, I mean, technically you want lots of air in your water. You want lots of oxygen pH. We'll see. Are you going to any of the Reefapaloozas? Are you going to the Florida one? When's that one?
So far I don't have it planned. So I just signed a contract with a freshwater company, actually, who does mainly substrates, to be brand ambassador, and I'll be going to shows with them, which means like the Aquashellas and Global Pet and some of the other really big ones.
That'll be fun.
Reefapalooza is not one they do. But I've gone on every other Reefapalooza because I wanted to. So why not?
It sounds good. Could be good. Well, I don't know. We'll work out one of the shows for sure. This year, we'll make one happen.
If you go to the show, that's the one I'm going to because it's a problem that we have not seen each other in person.
I agree. I feel like Reefapalooza in Florida tends to be my favorite just because they usually have a nice venue and it's nice and warm and lovely in the springtime there. But
pool's amazing and everybody hangs out by the pool and nobody has to drive.
Exactly. So I don't know. I feel like that one tends to be my most likely one, but we'll reconvene once a bit closer.
Okay.
Good plan. Good plan. All right. What else we got for questions in the chat? What else do you guys want to know? Burning reef questions.
Ooh, Tracy said he wants to go also.
Yes, you should, sir.
Barry will also be at Reefapalooza Orlando.
We should actually plan one and get a bunch of the community to come and do a big meetup. It'd be fun.
Because the community normally doesn't come to these things.
It's fun though. You have to be a hardcore reefer to travel to go to a reef show, but it is a lot of fun. And it is a good excuse to like just geek out. Basically do this stuff live. Right? Instead of live streaming, we're actually in person instead of staring at a camera. But yeah, it's more fun. What is your experience with biopellets? Do you have a preference, media type, favorite reactor if you used it? I have never personally used biopellets. They're essentially carbon dosing in a bit of a slow release form. It does work well for removing nitrates, which is the primary purpose of it. I've done lots of other methods, but not specifically biopellets. The one thing that always had me cautious with them is that bacteria, if you ever have a prolonged power outage, it gets really funky inside that reactor. And if that dumps into your tank, bad stuff could happen. So you want to like flush it and clean it, redo it if you ever have a big power outage. So that's always made me a little more cautious of biopellets. But they definitely do work. They're like a really simple-ish way to do carbon dosing. Have you ever used them?
I don't think I've ever used biopellets. I've used the bio balls, which is not carbon dosing. But I don't think I've ever used biopellets.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Dedicated reefer. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Super chat.
Oh my goodness. You guys love us tonight.
Love is in the air. Much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
We'll do the thing like... We have way too much fun with that.
We do. I'm using the new Geo ozone reactor. I have not used a specific ozone reactor. I've only ever used a skimmer that's rated for it.
I have not either. I used a... What skimmer do I use? I have a... My mind is not working tonight. Reef Octopus?
Yep.
Tab, you're like, yep, that is what you have.
Sorry. I was like, that is legit brand. It sounds proper. Okay. Polo Reef was struggling with Popeye from too much oxygen in the water, hence the need to degas it. Interesting. I didn't think too much oxygen would cause any issues.
I think that they were having with like Popeye and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Polo.
I didn't know that would. Yeah. I'd never thought that would cause that. Interesting.
You had a vet come in and everything, and a fish died anyway.
Yeah, that sucks. Jacob Mills, 49 super chat. Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate it. It only works when you do it.
Because you don't have to.
It's because I'm piping the stream video instead of just my camera. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Dedicated Reefer. Appreciate it, guys. Would you recommend adding copepods to a tank after it has cycled before turning the lights on or adding fish? That is a great time to add copepods because it gives them a chance to establish. Generally, once the light's on, there'll be more of a food source because they'll be able to eat the little bits of mullum and all the different stuff within the tank. So that's kind of the big things.
Created microbubbles. You skipped my question. We didn't skip your question. We just didn't see it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff strolling by.
If you add a new dry rock to an existing tank, how long do you think it takes for it to have its full amount of bacteria voodoo?
Okay, say that again.
If you add a new dry rock to an existing tank, how long do you think it takes for it to have its full amount of bacterial voodoo? Are you asking?
Oh, to
Yeah,
basically inoculate new rock. I would say probably, in my mind, usually about a month. If I'm adding rock, I'm going to use it in another tank. I'll throw it my sump for like a month and leave it there, just to let it get all the good stuff. I have no idea how long it takes, but in my mind, about a month is a good amount. Are you on the raise your silicas of a diatom bloom to fight ecodowns? I know some people say I'm nervous. I've raised diatoms to fight other stuff in a tank, like dinos, which did work actually. At least I feel like it helped.
God, there's so many different things that people have done to try and stuff like that. And part of me is like, maybe it's just time and all of this other stuff just happens that eventually the stuff goes away. I'd like to like actually test it somehow in like a methodical way because I feel like everything fixes it and everything causes it.
The problem is with some of the stuff that I've done is I kind of do multiple methods at once, which is more of a shotgun approach. I'm like, hey, I want this to go away. And you do a bunch of stuff at once. So it's harder to know, was it this one or was it a few things?
That's part of it too, right?
Yeah. So that's always the one little thing that messes with me a little bit. It's like, hey, I know I did these three things and it worked. Was it one of them or was it all of them?
So one of my friends, Cuban Reefer, do you know him?
Yeah, I think so. Pretty sure.
Right? He's absolutely amazing, super kind. He's down in Florida, has a cool sump that's outside. He was having issues with dinos for a long time, and he used, I think, a Fido from someone, and they went away. And he's actually sending me some because he's so certain that that's what made it go away. So I'm curious to see. I still have like a few patches. The ozone pretty much got rid of. I think the ozone got rid of it. And again, another thing, like it finally went away, but how many things was I doing?
Yeah. So like the ozone will help kill anything that's free floating, right? Because if it goes through your skimmer, the reaction is going to affect it. So all this stuff can help. I always call it kind of the shotgun approach, right? Because you're doing all these different methods and they're all going to have an impact. They're all going to help. And it could just be the combination.
All to get rid of them.
Do you need them all? Probably not. If you just want it to go away and you throw the kitchen sink at it and it works, I mean, win-win to an extent. As long as you're not completely upsetting the balance of your tank and causing more future issues. What else we got? Yeah, for copepods to seed it, if you add random frags and don't dip it, I mean, copepods will find a way into your tank. They will get in there eventually. If you're adding fish that eat pods specifically, I think you should most definitely add some and let them build up their population. Same thing. Pods are also like a tiny cleanup crew. So I do think there is a lot of benefits to having them in your tank and introducing them, especially letting them establish themselves before, they start getting picked off by fish. So personally, yes, add them. If you turn your lights on and there's more mullum and there's more little bacteria and stuff growing in the tank, then they'll have a lot more food source without your lights on. I mean, there will be some, but there won't be as much. But yeah, definitely. The other thing too, if you're adding pods, I always find dosing phytoplankton helps your pods explode because it's kind of their main food source. If you keep some areas dirty for a while,
Pods.
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I feel like I need more pods. Like at one point I had a crap load of pods and I feel like my fish have ate them so much that they're not really there's none left.
I have some coming for my nano, copious amounts of copepods. Do you have any cool inverts that are on your wish list that you're excited about? So far in my nano, I've added fire shrimp. I've added pom-pom crab, some sexy shrimp. I think that's it so far. Did I add a porcelain crab? I'm not sure yet. I've been on the hunt for really cool inverts. There's really cool anemone inverts that are like glass shrimp with little white spots and lots of cool things. So I don't know. I'm honestly just on the hunt for just really cool, weird, random inverts to add to my nano.
Oh, I am very well aware of Dinkins Aquatics. I love them. They actually sponsor my club. They are everywhere. They are kind people.
I don't know about Dinkins Aquatics. What are you talking about here? Fill me in. Oh,
No.
actually, no, I recognize the logo. Apparently, I kind of know them, just not the name. Live phytoplankton copepods.
They started, so I think one of them were they both teachers? I can't remember. But they like started growing phytoplankton, I think just for fun. And then it turned into this whole business. And now they aren't teachers anymore, whatever their original jobs were. They grow phytoplankton in pods. And it's like such a cute story. And they're like, have these really Southern accents. And they're just, they're from I think they live up in New Jersey or New York. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But they're cute. They're a really, really cute couple and super sweet and like
Nice.
super
cool.
giving. So it makes me happy that they're doing so well.
Oh, that's awesome. I do recognize the logo, so I have seen them before. John Wright, thinking of cultivating phyto. Have you or do you dose it? I used to cultivate phyto, and I dose copious amounts of it when I did used to culture it. I do it. I still dose it randomly now, but it wasn't kind of a daily thing. You know, having on a doser I think is awesome for your tank. I literally just randomly dumped a glug into my tank. No real rhyme or reason or schedule to it. I just randomly added it. But phytoplankton is the base food of the ocean. So I do think there's a lot of benefit to adding it.
Did you already answer this? I was only half listening. Have you ever cultured it?
Yes. Yes, I have.
You just answered that, right?
Yep. It's I've actually done really good videos on how to culture phytoplankton too. Basic gist, I mean, you need to be fairly sterile. You need some kind of a media like an F2 media as your fertilizer. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty easy. You got to make sure you split it when it's just right. You know, if you leave it too long, it will crash. Culture it too early, it's not going to split again. But overall, it's pretty easy. At least most strains. Not all of them. Some are more finicky. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, there's so many different strains too. We only have like a portion that we have in the hobby also. Jake once said to add iron to get rid of dinos.
Interesting.
Desert Reefing said that.
I have not tried that.
There's all the things. There's so many ways to get rid of them, but none of them work for me.
That's why you do the kitchen sink method of all of them. Something will work. Yeah.
I need to make a list of all of them and make sure I'm doing them all at the same time.
Right? So, yeah, I don't know.
Reefer and me, thoughts on coral snow? I just bought some powder. Me too.
Did you actually buy it?
I did.
You not just add the cart, you actually ordered it already?
Yeah. I had some other stuff in my cart, so I had free shipping already.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome. No time to waste. I love it. Best battery backup for a standard 12-volt DC pump. Oh.
You're like, it just so happens.
I have one behind me. I am a big fan of lithium iron phosphate batteries because they're light and they have an amazing lifespan. I did a couple videos on this. I've been actually experimenting with my own little product that I'm developing to power 24-volt devices off of 12-volt battery as well. So I'm going to experiment with my Nano to try and make it like have its own battery backup failover. But yeah, honestly, buy a lithium iron phosphate battery, you can get a 12 volt, 100 amp hour one for a reasonable price, which will run your power heads for days and days and days. And I think that's
I
a
should buy that
very
for the stream too.
wise investment.
Just like Inside Out, 518. He just ordered a new tank.
That's awesome.
I don't know why I'm so excited about that, but I
New
think
tanks are exciting. I understand.
it is. It is. I'm like, but
It really
during the
is.
stream,
Heck,
I don't know.
yes.
I'm sure there's lots of tanks that are bought during the stream, but it made me ridiculously excited.
Okay, wait, I gotta find that comment again. Which one was it? One of the innovative marine ones. The EXT. I still want to do one of the big lagoon style tanks one day. EXT 50. Nice. That'll be a sweet tank.
I need a giant 9,000 square foot building to just do all the different projects I want to do.
Yep.
And I'll outgrow it very quick.
Yep, exactly. Okay, dedicated reefer. What's the best way to deal with dinos? I blacked out for 3 days, added pods, done water changes every other day for 2 days. Could it be my phosphate nitrate ratio? The phosphate nitrate ratio could be related to the root cause, but I doubt it's with the dinos. You might have a non-photosynthetic dino that you're dealing with. Ideally, you would want to have a microscope to identify what type of dinos it is to know which way to treat it. I did do a really good stream with Jason Mack last month where we talked about different types of dinos and the best way to deal with it. So definitely check that one out.
And he is like super available. Anytime I've had any kind of issues, he's super fast to
Awesome
respond.
guy.
Helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Full of great information.
Yeah. So super good. But to know how to beat them, you need to know which dinos you're dealing with. And I feel like you likely have a non-photosynthetic kind, which is why it's worth either, if you don't have a microscope, buy a cheap Amazon one, or if you know a buddy with one, to go bring a sample over and check it out. But knowing which one it is will make your life much easier, because then you can know, okay, this is what I got to do to fight it, rather than just blindly trying methods.
Do you see what Lewis's goals are?
Heck yeah, seahorse, pipefish, and softy tank. Any tips?
Share
share pictures. Pipefish are awesome. In general, I find they're pretty easy.
Have you had some before?
Yes, but no, they can be jumpers, I've learned. So have a mesh top for pipefish. You wouldn't think they can jump, but they can jump. So unfortunately, I lost my blue stripes, which I didn't know what happened to them until I moved my tank, and I found little tiny crusty guys, which really sucked. So have a top. All reef tanks should have a top. I know they look better without them, but just keep your creatures safe. So that's one of the bigger ones. Seahorses, I mean, the big ones are pretty easy. They tend to favor mysis and food like that. So if you're already feeding frozen, you're probably fine. I believe you kind of want to feed them a little more frequently. I was always interested in trying to keep the dwarf ones, but again, they're a lot pickier and harder to feed. So you'd want to give them something like, not mysis, brine shrimp and other ones, which is a lot more work, but the big ones are pretty easy. Pipefish, they're just going to pick up pods. Softies are pretty easy in general, but Gargonians, like all that type of stuff is kind of cool for those type of tanks. You just need stuff that won't sting the seahorses because they're a little more delicate. But having a nice refugium with tons of pods would make your life with pipefish much, much easier.
Lisa says iron doesn't work.
Doesn't. Now, again, broad statement doesn't is hard to say. Maybe it works on one type of dinos and not another type, or one type of this, not another. So, because there is different strains.
How many different species these things there are? Even like the mat group, like they only have a certain number that they identify, and it's like there's so many more than that. Like,
I think there's only 4 or 5, like the main common ones, which there could be others. Who knows, right? What's my battery at? 22%.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Not bad at all. Got to dose water glass for dinos. Again, depends on the type, but water glass is just silicates, isn't it? I'm pretty sure water glass equals silicates.
Why is it that silicates work? Is it that something takes the
I think
diatoms?
yeah, so it it outcompetes them for one of their food sources. I believe that's what it is.
So did diatoms eat them? Did
No,
diatoms prey on them? No.
don't hold me to this, but my thought train is that the water glass, aka silicates, feed diatoms, which help outcompete the dinos. So you're basically using something else to help outcompete it, in a sense.
It's kind of how in Australia they brought in cats to get rid of the mice.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's not it because they were preying on them. That's not the same. I'm wrong.
Do you want to know a
Not-
funny story while we're talking about the random stuff?
Yeah.
So Okanagan Lake, the lake where I am, they originally introduced mysis shrimp to try and help the kokanee, all the fish, and boost their populations. But then the mysis shrimp started eating a lot of the plankton, a lot of the food for the fish, so that actually became a problem. So now they harvest all the mysis shrimp out of the lake to help, help fix the problem, but that's also turns into our fish food. So, PE mysis comes from my local lake, which I thought was cool, but it's kind of funny how they introduced it. But then they started outcompeting and it became a problem, and now they're purposely pulling them out. So it's kind of funny how that works. Messing with the ecosystem.
We're good at that. We do it so well.
That's what we do.
Swallow the spider to catch a fly. Exactly. Don't know why.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's funny how it works and just, the things you do. But that's the problem with, when you're treating your tank for something, if some of these sledgehammer, chemical or other approaches might kill it, but then you might screw up the balance for something else, and then you might have other issues a month or two later come back and get you. So it's, it's always that kind of consideration when you're doing these approaches.
I think that they're way more. I don't think that they do as many of the biological controls as they used to do because there are always unforeseen consequences that are problematic, which is probably a good lesson to have learned, but maybe a bit too late for my opinion.
What else you got, Brandi? Never too late for your opinion. Come on now.
On what?
Anything. What do you got?
So next week I'm going to Tidal Gardens.
Ooh.
Me and Melissa from CJ are going up there, and I think we're going to do a live stream that Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping I can get some more coral while I'm there. I have been eyeing some of his blue hammers, and I don't know what else I would get though. I feel like my tank is full. Maybe I do need an upgrade.
You just need another tank to play with. So my Ghani tank, I have 7 more Ghanis coming, hopefully next week. It's going to be amazing.
7 more Ghanis?
It'll make space. Yeah, it'll fit. Just think once they all grow together and the whole nano is just a rainbow of Ghanis. It's going to be sweet. So I'm excited for it.
You know what? Speaking of that, Dedicated Reefer said, can't wait to see you with Dan. Looking forward to it.
I agree, actually.
I'm really excited. So it was really interesting because today I just so happened to see a thread on a Facebook, I think one of the Polar Reef Facebook groups, where they had printed out that paper and were talking about it and had come up with a completely different conclusion for the coral biome and the boundary layer that we did.
Yes.
And his idea, I thought, was super profound and it was actually super logical. And I'm like, oh my God, it makes me so excited that we're doing that because it brings different people with different ideas to think about things slightly differently. And I was like, yay, it just made me feel so accomplished that I could contribute in that kind of way.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. You guys did some pretty good geek out deep dives.
So I think we're going to do one on Vibrio.
Ooh, nice.
Which it's crazy. Vibrio is a really weird bacteria. And I don't know if we've picked the second one yet. I think I have 4 options and I haven't decided which one we want to record.
Nice. We'll save some for us to deep dive into, but I actually really enjoyed the one that you did with Dan. It was good. I
think this is going to be 7 or 8 now. It's crazy.
Oh, that's awesome. It's fun.
I didn't think he would like keep doing it. I
How,
thought I would not be exciting.
how far away are you from Than?
It's like an 8 hour drive, so it's a long.
It's
It's
a
not
day
a
trip.
terrible drive, but I'm flying,
Okay.
and it's a direct flight, and it's like $100 for an
Oh,
hour.
that's not
Yeah,
bad.
no, it's like
That's
it's
worth it.
almost down to try and drive it because it's so
You
cheap.
spend more on gas and a day, and yeah,
Yep.
no,
So
that's pretty awesome.
makes it super easy.
I'm trying. One day I'm gonna go. Adam from Frag Garage. I've been chatting with him, and sometimes they're super cheap flights. So one day I'm gonna go visit him just for fun. Go
Oh,
check out
you
his
should.
setup. But yeah,
I would love to. I would love that as well.
yeah, he has a pretty sweet setup. So that'd be cool. Be a fun one. All right, Brandy. I think actually any other questions in the chat before my computer battery dies. Dun, dun, dun. I don't want to just disappear. We'll end gracefully soon.
Hook me up, Brandy. I'm only 45 minutes away from you. Where are you getting it at? Getting what at? The flight? Is he talking about the flight,
I
Tracy?
don't know. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, Than did build a sweet media studio. Again, this is all stuff on like my one day wish list. I love how he's just like, here's the podcasting room with the fancy chairs and the backdrop, ready to roll.
He did that
One
like
day,
3 weeks too. That was like a
I
storage
know.
area, and it was
We
so
were,
cool.
we were
Um,
chatting. He kept sending me pictures, just making me jealous of this amazing setup he's building. I'm just like, it's so cool. I love it. It's awesome.
it was at the Charlotte airport, and it's American flights. They're not always that cheap, but the most I've ever seen to go to Cleveland is 300. But like this time of year, they're like $100 to go to Cleveland, and they go three or
Nice.
four times a day. I suspect there's probably some type of mail route because a lot of times the plane doesn't have a whole lot of people on it, and so either way, like the
Bonus.
plane has to go.
That's
So
sweet.
yeah,
Can't yeah, you can't beat that. That's awesome.
yeah.
One day I'll find an excuse to come visit.
Oh, Tracy, you should come with us at some point. It'd be fun.
We'll plan some show this year. We should do a big meetup though. I think that'd be awesome.
I've never been to California to the Reefapalooza there. I'd
Me
love
neither.
to do that because that's the only one I've never done.
Hmm. I think
Though
me too
Orlando,
actually.
huh?
I don't think I've been to the California one either. So
Really?
I've been to
They
New
say that
York.
that's super, super
We
fun.
have one.
Tidal Gardens is about 40 minutes from Cleveland.
Not bad. Not bad.
Nope. And but Orlando is so much fun. Like I think it. Part of me is like, there's no way California could be more fun than Orlando, but who knows?
Maybe we'll have to try them both. Then we can know for sure.
I love that I get to do both.
I know, right?
Do
So
Aquashellas
I have not done one.
because you have the vivarium, right?
I do have a vivarium. Two.
So, oh, you have two now?
Yeah. Do you know what's? Yeah. I'll show you a photo later. I had this
Okay.
other idea for a really big, cool peninsula style one is like a room divider one day when I have the right space or like a new office or something one day. But I have a really cool idea. But again, it'd be big and extreme, but it'd be awesome.
Well, see, an Aquashella would not be a bad option for you,
Yeah. Maybe one day. We'll see.
and I will be at all of those. So,
Yeah. All right.
all right,
Uh,
we can't wait for Chattanooga Reef Suck either. It's going to be so much fun.
yeah, it'll be good. Alyssa M. Love Gaunies. They are so sassy. Gaunies are awesome.
You know who I love? Elisa M. She's one of my board members on my club. She's amazing. She
Nice.
she is absolutely incredible.
Awesome.
I'll be
People.
like, can anybody do? And she's like, I already did it. And I'm like, oh.
Already done.
Like I always joke. I'm like, Elisa did it yesterday.
I did it before you asked. I knew it was coming.
I could see this in my crystal ball.
The crystal fish tank. Yeah, that's awesome.
Last question.
Tips on getting Goniapora to extend. I find if they're happy, they just do extend. If they're not extending, they're usually further gone and having issues. You can try amino acids or food to try and coach it out, but the biggest thing is get it to eat something.
What makes God happy?
Someone mentioned the chat earlier, but someone was saying manganese, I believe it was, potentially. I haven't done anything special for mine yet. I have been doing a drop of one of the KZ coral foodish ones, whatever one, coral vitalizer that doesn't raise nitrates or phosphates, whatever the one is, I think that's what it is. I've been doing a drop of that every day or two, and then I feed mysis to the fish so they get whatever little particles are floating around. And that's all I've really done with mine so far. Specifically, because the tank's primarily Ghanies. In my big reef tank, again, I rarely ever spot feed. I base broadcast feed the tank. Mysis is kind of my staple, and happy as can be. But if they're not extending, I would try and do some force feeding, maybe some aminos, do something to kind of like help coach them out and get some nutrients into them.
I have one Ghani, and I think it's very happy.
Yeah, Ghanies
But
are
I
awesome.
look at it every day because it makes me anxious because I'm like, please stay happy.
Yeah, I don't know. I've personally find like as long as they're healthy when you start, like they're pretty easy.
I think
But
so. Like the edge looks like, I think the edge is growing, so it's thinner on the edge, and I keep looking at it, and I'm like, is it growing or is it like receding?
yeah,
And there's not as many polyps. And I think it's growing. I need to do some time lapse photography and compare it. But
you should. Hopefully all good stuff.
yeah, in the back of my head, I always think it's something bad, and it's almost always something good.
With Ghanies, I do think trace elements do matter a little more with them. And again, my big tank, I dose trace elements, and I think it covers whatever the Ghanies are after. And so far, they've been happy with my nano. So I guess we're going to find out with Alpha Reef, because I plan on just primarily dosing that and see if that's supposed to have trace, so hopefully it covers it. So we'll find out in like 4 or 5 months now. We'll give it the Alpha Reef review of if it's keeping the Ghanies happy.
I did buy KZ trace elements over Christmas because they were on sale, and I was like, I've never tried any KZ products, and I wanted to.
Sales are most of my decisions. I understand.
So I am currently dosing extra trace elements on what's just in my regular dosing thing. But I should probably do some ICP tests.
It never hurts. It's if
Tracy
you're
sent a super chat, and he said it never showed up.
what? I have not seen it, Tracy. YouTube is scamming us. No, I haven't seen it show up. Thank you if you did, but I have not seen it. Maybe it will come. Iron/manganese for Ghanies. Yeah, manganese for sure. Iron probably. Yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. But there's stuff that I've always dosed, and mine have always been happy, so I can't. It's hard to say for sure, but it makes sense for sure. I have an acan that started with 3 polyps, now has 15. Very nice. Big and fluffy, only opening halfway, and ideas could be wrong. All the standard tests are the same. Acans really appreciate being fed. They will, if they're not fully coming out, that could be a fish or something picking at it. That's likely the cause.
That was my 2 thoughts.
Yeah. Usually something's physically bugging it, or maybe you're blasting with too much light.
I'll tell you something else that irritates the crap out of them is vermitids. Like, that's the first thing I look for whenever my acans are having issues, and almost always there's a vermitid like right underneath the polyp. I feel like they are more irritated than other corals by vermitids.
Yeah, that can make sense. Yeah, I'm really curious to see if the calcium carbonate, aka coral snow, works over like tones them down.
I have so many right now out of nowhere, so let's hope. I probably have 1,000.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, I really hope it works. I've had high hopes on this, but I want someone to confirm it, so it's from more than one person telling me. But, Brandi, what company do you use for ICP?
Whoever has given one to me. You go to the shows, and a lot of the companies hand them out. So I have so many from like where they're just handing them out when you walk through the front door. And sometimes, like, every time I come in and out, they hand me another one. I'm like, I've already got one. So, like, that sounds like I'm being whatever, like, too fancy for everybody. But I have so many from shows. So, I've used Tropic Marin. I've used ICP Analysis. I've used, I think there's 3 or 4 I've used. I've used Chris Meckley's before. Um, I've probably used most of them.
Yep. Yeah, I've used ICP Analysis, ATI, Triton, Fauna, maybe others. I feel like there was one more I'm blanking on. The last one I did Fauna, and it was pretty good. Like, gives you tons of detail, which is cool. Before that, I primarily used ATI. Again, kind of depends. I tend to buy what's on sale, but whatever you can get, it's ideal to stick with the same one because then it'll be more consistent.
Yeah, hopefully the same one is being tested by the same person on the same machine, because even if it's the same company, if they're being done on different machines or by different people, the results could be very different. Because we're talking about such small amounts. It's like trying to count out sugar grains and saying how much sugar do you want in your coffee. Like it's very, very small amounts.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Dev, what
I
is
know.
happening to super chats?
YouTube is being buggered. Niagara
You
Fire
probably
Corals, I have not seen it, but thank
broke
you.
the community standards.
Huh?
You probably broke the community standards.
What did we do? I don't know. Hopefully. I don't know why it hasn't shown up yet, but thank you. Hopefully it eventually does. I do appreciate
Thank
it.
you guys.
Yeah, I do thank you. Hopefully YouTube fixes
So
itself.
Niagara Fire Corals and Tracy sent something, and we're not getting it.
Yep. Thank you, Tracy and Niagara Fire Corals. I hope it eventually works, but yeah, I don't know what's
Oh,
up with YouTube.
Reef I've used Reef Labs too.
I feel like I've used Reef Labs, maybe. I haven't used Chris's Friends one yet, though. What's that one called?
Ace ATI?
No.
No. What's the name of that company that you use, Matt, that I always mix up? ACI? No, that's Chris.
Captivate. No.
Captivate. That's it,
Yeah,
Captivate.
Captivate. Yeah. So, I don't know.
We'll get there eventually. I'm too
Yep.
tired for my brain to work. You shouldn't rely on me tonight.
That
Maybe I should have
happens.
told you no.
I know, right? But yeah, at the end of the day, what can you actually get that's easy to get is half the battle. Hey, Niagara Fire Girls $1.49. Thank you, buddy.
Thank
It
you,
finally
Niagara.
made it. Yay. Yeah, Reef Labs. So something that you can get, if it's on sale, that's, a big win in my books. Something that's easy to get so you can actually do it, if you need it. And because sometimes machines might be calibrated a little bit differently. But if you use the same one and you're consistent with it, or at least the machine will be consistent with you. Port Wolf, $2 test. Yay! Port Wolf. It has been fixed. Super chat's not working, but stickers work. I don't know. Either way, thank you guys. We definitely appreciate it. Yeah, so something that is easy to get and consistent makes a big difference. I know some people will send it to 4 different ones and they'll be like, yep, they're not all the same. Each one might be a little bit differently because, yes, machines might be different. But as most things in the reefing hobby, sometimes it's more important to look at the trends rather than the actual number. And, is it consistent? Your dosing's good. Is it going down? Dose more. Is it way too high? Dose less. Like, a lot of the decisions, I find a lot of people overthink stuff, right? It's like, oh, how many mils of this and this do I need to dose? It's like, take...
sugar crystals.
Yeah, start low, best guess. And if you're trending down, dose more. You're going too high, dose less. Like, if you mix something and it's not the right concentration, just look at the trends and know how to adjust your dosing, and rather than obsessing over the number per se.
I know we're trying to be done, but the Smoking Reefer made a very good point too. He likes to use Triton because it's fairly local to him.
Yeah.
And I do think
Wise.
sometimes, like, if they have to be flown internationally and stuff, like, sometimes I wonder, like, might not make a difference, but I wonder, like, what's the accuracy and precision at that point when it's taken like 6 weeks to get to its final destination.
Yeah, I often wonder a very similar thing. Like, I guess they're seals, they can't really precipitate out, but does it change over time?
I mean, there's live stuff in it. Like, you assume there's bacteria and different things.
I'm at 3% battery. We're going to die soon. All right. I'm actually amazed my battery backup lasted this long. But yes, thank you guys for hanging out tonight. I definitely appreciate it. Tracy, I'm sorry, but thank you for the super chat, even though I never saw it. Niagara Firecrawls, Port Wolf, Jagged, Dedicated Reefer, Batty's Reef, Sparkly, Woody's Gamertag. Appreciate you all. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Much love. Brandi, you are fabulous, and thank you for joining me today. We always have fun chatting. Yes. To get a pedal generator, just be working at it. I'll be like, as I'm streaming. Yeah, we'll see. So, I don't know. maybe. Okay, hopefully you guys enjoyed it tonight. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you found it useful. Thank you for super chats. Thank you for hanging out. Brandi, you're wonderful, and we will lure you on again in a couple weeks. And yeah, hopefully everyone enjoyed it. Like button, all that fun stuff. Thank you. Have a good night, guys.